right, let's do it live on a Monday edition of Cleveland Browns Daily. I am merely Beau. He is the great Z. The Cleveland Browns are really, really good. Against that team at that place, you had to be great. And that's the thing that resonates with me today as we start the show, my friend. You have no margin when you play them. And you cannot have the mistakes. And when you have the mistakes, you lose. It's as simple as that. But you played probably as good a half of football as I think the Cleveland Browns have ever played. I don't know how you could play better. You played good enough to win. For much of the day Sunday, you were the better team. It's just against that team, you got to be great for 60.
You've got to execute nearly flawlessly, and the Browns did not. And the Browns did for a great portion of the game, but you need to do it for 60 minutes. And I know that people are upset with the fact that the Browns lost that game. I'm disappointed that the Browns lost that game. But here we are as a team that went into Arrowhead Stadium against the elite of our conference and certainly the elite of the league. I mean, they have been in the Final Four 3 straight years. They've been in the Final Two straight years. They've won the Super Bowl in that period as well. You went into Arrowhead, and at one point you got the ball back towards the end of the game with a chance to drive down the field and win it, despite having committed 2 turnovers, because the muffed punt or muffed snap on the punt that's a turnover in terms of yardage for sure.
Yep.
And you had the lost fumble. They had no turnovers. We went through the things you needed to do to win the game. Neutral to win the turnover battle. Did not do that. You don't beat the Kansas City Chiefs when you do that. Now, we did generate pressure on him, but Patrick Mahomes, and I'll tell you, being on the sideline, he's incredible to watch. Going back and watching the tape, it's even more stunning to watch how good of a quarterback he is. But we had our chances. We did a great job holding them to 10 points in the first half. You get a broken play, and you get a short field in the second half that led directly to 14 of their points. All in all, not a terrible, in fact, a very solid defensive performance. It was, and I know people with too much zone. For a long time, you kept them completely in check. Travis Kelce is very difficult to cover. Tyreek Hill is very difficult to cover. Patrick Mahomes is – go back and watch it. For those of you guys who get NFL Game Pass, watch the All-22. Watch how many times he stands there as he's about to get clobbered. McKinley clobbered him. Miles clobbered him. Both Malik's clobbered him. Clowney clobbered him. It didn't matter. But we still were, for the majority of that game, the better team. We didn't trail until there were 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter. For the majority of the game, we were the better football team. And when it mattered at the end, and this is what all the players and the coaches have said, they were more poised and they did not make mistakes. We did. And that's why we lost that game. We beat the better team. I saw this on Twitter. I'm going to steal it. We beat the better team at Arrowhead on Sunday. But the better team was us. We beat ourselves.
Yeah, and with them, you cannot have those miscues that happen and they avalanched on you, right? Because one led to the next, and you still have these opportunities. And I do think, like, you come away from that and you go, and I watched a lot of football. I know you were traveling and in preparation for our game. I watched a lot of football yesterday. We're as good as anybody. We're as good as anybody in the league. You're a top 5 team in the league. I do think that for us, that would have been a much bigger win for us than it would have been a loss for them. Correct. I think it would have propelled us. I think there would have been a 10-foot tall and bulletproof. I think there would have been a chestiness for us. Confidence would have been building for us. And I think losing that game really stinks for that standpoint. It doesn't take away from the fact that you went toe-to-toe and were better. It doesn't take away from the fact of what you just said of it took 3 turnovers in this game to get into the spot that you're in. All of those things are true. If you're able to win that game, it means more to you than a loss would have meant to them. Them winning hurts. It stings because your game plan was great. Your game plan was great. They scored 33 points. And we said this on Friday, guys. Any drive that doesn't result in a touchdown against that offense is a win. That happened several times. Yep. What, 3 times? 3 or 4 times?
Held them to 3 field goals, and they punted once,
They punted, right. So you had 4 times where you held them to less than 7. That means you got a pretty dang good defense. By the way, you lose a starting safety 5 plays into the game. Not ideal, right? You did this. Let's remember this, too. You did this without Odell Beckham Jr.
That's right.
Would have been nice to have him in the game. Without
Yes.
Grant Delpit. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah did not play the amount of snaps that I thought he would play in this game. So you're going to get better, but it's going to be incumbent upon our leadership, guys, to take this and positively run with it, because there's no question. You got to be fair here. We had a lot invested in this one. You could feel it by our guys. I'm sure you felt it on the field. That there was it almost felt like, from watching on TV, and I'll pose this question to you. It almost felt like on TV that we knew how good we were. Our first half performance validated that. And then to not get the reward stings.
Oh, no, it hurt. The players were unhappy coming out. There are no moral victories for this football team. They know that they had it, and they let it get away. And that if they had played cleanly and handled their responsibilities, they would have won this game against the Kansas City Chiefs. And that is why I think this one does sting. Now, remember, nobody expected us to win this game. We were 6-point underdogs by the time it kicked, about 5.5-point underdogs. We were one of the bigger underdogs in the National Football League in Week 1. We were in the top quartile of big underdogs in Week 1. And it hurts because we are legit. We should have won that game.
Yep.
And we're going to nitpick all the little things that happened, but it really comes down to the fumble and the punt. And those are the reasons why the Browns didn't win the game. And the Chiefs made no similar mistakes. We had 5 drives, 5 of 75 yards or more. 5 drives of 75 yards or more in terms of net yards. The Chiefs, they had 4. We did a good job forcing that punt that we needed to at the end of the game. We then didn't capitalize. We were moving the ball nicely. Baker's trying to throw it away, get it out to the sideline, maybe give Brian a chance to make a catch.
Right, throw it high, and if
high.
he gets it, he gets it. If not,
Great.
it's in the second deck, no problem.
He gets
Away
hit,
we go.
And it
Gets
ends
hit.
up being short.
Yeah.
And so we had the chances. And you know, Kevin Stefanski will be the first to tell you, do you take some confidence in the fact that, you guys did this, or do you feel good? No. They don't feel good because they know they should have won the game. And this is a team that is going to need to learn how to finish those games and win those football games. Getting there and being competitive, we've done that. We did that last year, and honestly, the way that it kind of unfolded over the final 8 minutes felt a lot like the final 8 minutes at Arrowhead Stadium a year ago. The difference was you had Patrick Mahomes. You had their full offense going. You didn't have that back then when Mahomes got knocked out of that game. They didn't have the Honey Badger. We didn't have Odell Beckham Jr. There are no excuses to be made in this game. The Browns showed what they are capable of, but in the National Football League, you need to be capable of reaching your potential and executing at that level for 60 minutes. Against a team like the Chiefs.
That's that's championship level football, what we're talking about. What you're
Right.
talking about right now.
But that's what we
want to be.
That's what you saw that we can be.
Yes.
I mean, everybody. We went out
course.
there in that first half and played near flawless football and took it to the best that our conference has to offer.
Yeah.
But we didn't finish it.
And it's the difference from being really good and being great. It's 3 plays. It's 2 plays, really. It's 2 plays that change everything. And there's no margin when you play that team. There is no margin when you play them. And that's what you aspire to be. And it would have meant a lot. And it was set up storybook. My God, Denzel Ward on the play. And then as they're snapping the ball on 3rd down, I look over at the boys and I say, God, be a hell of a time for Miles. Be a heck of a time for Miles.
He and Clowney both got there.
Both got there. Get him. Okay, here we go. It was all set up for storybook, right? But really, if you think about it, it's the drives. It's the 3 and out before that is particular. That's tough to get over. Is that the 2 series before to start the
2
fourth quarter?
series before you went
go 3 and out.
3 and out, and both of them, you had one of them. You had a sack. And the other, you had a penalty. You were immediately behind the sticks on
the procedure,
both of those.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then you picked up the 8 to Jarvis, I want to say, and you got to a manageable, but you weren't able to then finish that drive. And you almost had the big play to Anthony Schwartz, and that's a ball that Baker made a good throw on. He made the right read. They had 3 guys in routes. 2 of them were doubled. Schwartz was 1-to-1. If that ball's out to the sideline a little more, I'm sure Baker would say, if I could have gotten it just on the other side of his body, good chance it's a catch. And we'll get into all the positives, who stood out and what. Anthony Schwartz, a very impressive debut for the Browns rookie. But, yeah, it was there. And it's those few things in those few moments. And the play, Patrick Mahomes makes an unreal play, throws it up there because it was underthrown. Tyreek Hill comes back to it. John Johnson. It was, again, we flushed him out. 30%. They were 1-2 last year when they got pressured 30% of the time, the Chiefs.
Yep.
The highest pressure rate they saw all season was 35. We pressured them on 44% of their passing plays. 44%. Fifth highest in the NFL. And it didn't matter. No. It didn't matter. On this day, he was that good. But the reality is, it didn't matter how good he was. It didn't matter what the Chiefs did. The reality is, we did not take advantage of our chances because we let two literally go through our fingers.
Yeah.
But we're right there. And there's nobody's excited about feeling we knew we were legit when you
looked
on
paper. No, and this is fun, guys.
But you saw it.
This is fun.
It is fun.
This is what the NFL at the highest level is about, right? It's about going toe-to-toe with the best. You have some self-inflicted things that keep you from victory. But the realization, and you ought to wake up with this morning, and I think many of you did go to bed last night, and many of you probably did, saying, we are just as good as that team is. Just as good. And we have an antidote to beat them, right? We absolutely do. They weren't at their best. We weren't at ours. They didn't have Honey Badger. Fine. We didn't have guys, too.
Yep.
We were down two safeties. We're going to play a lot of minutes. NFL. You're not going to have Odell. We didn't have Odell Beckham Jr. Jedrick Wills goes down early in the game, so forth and so on. That's the reality of the NFL. This league, this isn't college football. It comes down to 3 or 4 plays.
Yeah, that's right.
It's it. It's 3 or 4 plays here or there that decide when the great teams play. That's the difference. They made them. We didn't. And that was it. And they win 33-29 at their place.
We made a lot of them. The problem was the 2 that we did not were catastrophic. Yes. In a change of possession, you give them short fields. They had 10 points off of turnovers. We lost the game by 4. That's not hard math to figure out.
No. Pretty straightforward. As you mentioned, lots of positives. We're going to get to all of them. Fun program for you today. The Hoff will join with his thoughts in the Joe Thomas Hour. That is coming up at 2 o'clock. Those were your OBM Hot Topics. Ohio Business Machines, preferred copier provider of your Cleveland Browns. They have all the X's and O's for your office. You can call 216-485-2000 or visit ohiobusinessmachines.com. And the Browns bundle is back at Buffalo Wild Wings for the 21 season. Participating Ohio Buffalo Wild Wings locations during the season with the purchase of a Browns bundle, fans get a limited edition collectible Cleveland Browns glass. The $14.99 Browns bundle includes a 6-piece wing, fries, and Browns glass. This season collection honors the Browns' 75th anniversary with 3 unique designs: the 75th anniversary logo, the throwback brownie, and the 1946 patch logo. Lots to get to. Lots of positives. Injury details. We'll get you the latest on Jedrick Wills. As I mentioned, Joe Thomas coming up in the 2 o'clock hour of the program. We are off and running. Cleveland Browns Daily, 850 ESPN Cleveland. Well, you've all been cooped up in the house a lot more in the past year and a half. Time to get outside, get to grilling. Certainly in the fall, it's a great time to do it. Put your feet up, just enjoy being outside. The weather has been great. Instead of sitting on that beat-up folding chairs, how about real patio furniture? It's going to last you for years. Northeast Factory Direct has outdoor sectionals, dining sets, fire pitch, loungers. You're going to get everything you need for a whole lot less than you'd expect to play at other places. Each of their stores, Cleveland, Euclid, Macedonia, stocked. They're ready to go with outdoor furniture. Stop in, check it out for yourself. You're not going to be disappointed in the quality or the selection. Of course, you can shop it online anytime at northeastfactorydirect.com. The reason – look, it stinks to lose. Right? It stinks to lose. But it is awful fun to play a 425 game that the world is watching in the opener, feel like you're a really good to / great football team, and play that way against the best. They're the best. Okay? They're the best. They're the most consistent team in the NFL the last 3 years. They're the most explosive team in the NFL. We did a lot of things well. That first half of football, you'd have to, I mean, Riz would know this. Gibby, you'd probably know this. You've been around for a while, but unfortunately, you and I, neither you nor I have recollection of the 80s and what's
Sure.
those. Better half of football of a Cleveland Browns team than the one that you saw?
I mean, you could say like Dallas last year was an incredible first
Dallas
half of
ain't
football.
KC, though.
Well, that's right. If you're based on
It has
first
you have
half
to take.
at Tennessee last year, they
was
were
pretty good.
Their playoff team, and we stomped them.
I think this was even better.
It's
22
just 'cause
to
Kansas
10.
City's so good.
There's, of course, because of who they
But
are.
what I would say is this:
Like-
a perfect half of football, you get 1st and 10 at the 36 after your defense gets the ball back. When I didn't think we were going to get the ball back, forces the first punt of the game by the Kansas City Chiefs. Remember, the Chiefs got the ball back with 2 minutes and 55 seconds to go in the first half.
I texted you. I said we were too good for our own good. We scored too quick.
fast.
I
And
thought
guess
they were
what? We made them punt.
Yeah.
We get it back. Remember, they pin us at our 1. Run by Kareem, big play to the Chief. We had 1st and 10 at their 36 and didn't attempt a field goal. That's not great. If a perfect half concludes with us scoring points right there. And those
you
are
almost
points.
think you have the fun. You're exactly right. And that's a great job out of you because the trick play's fun at the end and you get it all the way down to the 11 with that trick play, which is fun. And then but that does take a little bit. You kind of forget what happened before that.
Yeah, we were at 1st and 10 at the 36 after the
you
big
needed
ball
to
to
get
the
points
Chief.
there.
Right.
When you play them. But that's, again, it goes back to our conversation. That's the margin. There isn't any. You have to take advantage of every opportunity they gave you. It's 22 to 10. You kick a field goal, it's 25 to 10. It's
touchdown. Why not? 29 to 10. I mean, but those are, and then they come out and score on the opening of the second half. They get a touchdown. Then we have the fumble. They get a field goal. All of a sudden, it's 22-20. Now, we answered. We go 9 plays, 75 yards right after that, which was, I thought, just a tremendous drive, culminated by the Kareem Hunt touchdown. A great answer. And we did, but it was the fact that we had to answer, and you have the next possession comes right. They score on one play immediately following that. And then the next one's the 3 and out, and Hammer drops the snap. And I think it's one of those, he's going to wish he had that back. Dropping the snap happens. That was a physical mistake. Physical mistakes happen.
Yep.
That is a freak play. But where they're going to say the mental mistake occurred is he still could have picked the ball up and put his foot on it. And so, again, that goes back to our poise. And he'll learn from that. You got to remember, folks, this guy's a young player in the National Football League. This is not something he has done, for his whole life, for example.
Well, no, and his instinct in that, I'm sure, goes back to a rugby player to pick it up and run. And get some yards.
Sure.
I mean, that's the way that goes. Andy Reid talked about that post-game. I heard some comments from him where he talked about their crowd playing a factor in that. You were there. Was it as loud as it seemed on television?
I mean, there were times when I was talking to Gibbe in the mic, and I couldn't even hear myself talk.
It was that, yeah.
Like, I couldn't hear my own voice.
You looked great, by the way.
Thanks. Felt good. Just took the
coat
jacket off for the
I
game.
love that. Yeah, that's a good look out of you.
I took the coat off for the game.
It's a good job.
He was a real chatty Cathy in the old years.
I am a chat, because otherwise you're just standing there alone. Like, I love being able to talk to you because at least we can, experience.
We went back and forth on a few things.
The game, and I also, I try to point out stuff that's going on to you because I know that they're not all coming. I'm not going to get to say all of it from the sideline, so I'm trying to make sure that you can tell the peeps who need to know.
When I say we were at the top of the world, we were at the top of the world.
Yeah,
there's only one stadium.
Well, I saw your picture. It looked awesome.
It's a beautiful view, but
I love that up there.
I would
Don't
imagine.
you like it? Isn't it great to see?
Yeah. However, the only stadium in the NFL, the windows do not come out.
Well, do you have AC at least?
Yeah, but
Oh, you want the
you got
ambiance.
the net sound you really want.
Really? So there's no windows that come out of that
No,
place.
you got to plug in, and the TV truck feeds you the
Oh,
crowd.
that stinks. That stinks. Yeah, I love that vantage point that you had, though. I mean, that's where I
Listen,
like to
even-
watch. Is up there, you can see everything.
Of course, but I would think even I have LASIK. I would imagine it would be hard to see numbers clearly and know exactly what was going on.
There's only one stadium I think that's higher, and that's Indy. Indy, like
Indy's
you're on the
high.
10th floor.
Yeah, yeah. Indy's a binoculars situation.
It was loud, and it was
The national anthem was crazy
stealth bomber
awesome.
flyover. No, I don't know that I've ever seen that before.
Yeah,
It was like a Tesla. Stealth is not just the fact it's radar profile. It was quiet. It was like pretty quiet.
Yeah.
this
Yep.
Just
Yeah.
it was pretty cool to see. It didn't look real.
the it's interesting. It was a good day for the scores because Malik McDowell, first play of the game, defensive play of the game, just devours Schwartz, who we talked about a lot in camp about how he wasn't active. But look you need him to run 10 routes deep, and Baker had a ton of confidence in him.
But
Obviously,
he played even more than that. And I was telling
Yeah.
Gibby, that was one of the things I was very happy about is I got a sense as things were going on and unfolding that Anthony Schwartz was going to play a much bigger role than expected, and especially in our 13 personnel grouping. And he did that. And folks, I don't know that goes away even when Odell Beckham Jr. comes back. You put the 13 personnel out there with Anthony Schwartz. I was talking with the Hop. We'll talk about it when he comes on. So 13 personnel, that's 3 tight ends, 1 wide receiver, 1 running back.
yep.
We led the NFL. We had 127 yards gained while we operated out of 13 personnel. 127 yards were gained on 9 plays. We averaged 14.1 yards per play. We had 6 of those 9 plays resulted in first downs. We attempted 4 passes out of 13 personnel. We went 4 for 4 for 99 yards, 25 yards per attempt. And one of them was a little flare out to Harrison Bryant. One of them was a bomb to the Chief. One of them was a nice little flare out to Nick Chubb. And one of them was, of course, the bomb to Anthony Schwartz that if he catches cleanly, he walks in the end zone for a 75-yard touchdown. Anthony Schwartz showed great. He used his hands. He had some great hand catches. They schemed up on 3rd and 3. On a 3rd and 3, they schemed up a play for Schwartz where we faked the sprint option left, and you had Jarvis there on that out, just to throw it back, which is an incredible throw by Baker, back in man to Schwartz for 20-something yards. I mean, the efficiency out of that formation, and the last time we saw efficiency like that out of 13 personnel, you got to go back to 2018 when Brashad Perriman was the solo guy in those formations with the 3 tight ends. That speed with that formation and our ability to run block puts defenses in a real pickle. And Anthony Schwartz had an incredibly strong debut.
Yes. Yeah, he sure did. By the way, we've talked a lot in camp in the lead-up to David Njoku and the role that he would have. He has physical abilities that nobody else in the room possesses. And quite frankly, not a whole lot in the league possess his size, athletic ability, his jumping ability. Very few in the league have it. And you started to see that unlock, and also Baker's trust in him. And I think even more than the interception, if Baker would have one back, it was the one to Chief on the sideline. If he could have one back, that's the one he would want.
Kind of a broken play.
Yep.
Chief on the out and up, and then he breaks it off to come back to Baker and was open. And there's a similar one where Schwartz broke free, where Baker scrambled out right, but he flicked it out of bounds. If he had seen Schwartz, he would have had that. But that one to Chief, I think you could be right because he just needed to put a little more air under it.
Yep.
If he got the ball to Chief, he was going to catch it. He had the defender behind him. I got to be honest with you. I want to see more. And you look at the snap breakdown for the Chief, 35. You look at Austin Hooper, 38. You look at Harrison Bryant, 19. So he played the second most. He played a good portion of snaps. Played more snaps, in fact, than Nick Chubb, who played 31. Kareem Hunt playing the other 28 of our 59 offensive snaps. If he's catching the football the way that he is, his ability on that flag route to run by a safety, his ability to make that catch in traffic on that drive we talked about at the end of the first half, that if this truly were a perfect half, we score points there. he brings an element of playmaking, of speed, of danger, of threat to an opposing defense that Hoop doesn't. Now, Hoop caught everything. You don't score your first drive. Diving catch on third down, diving catch on fourth down on a low ball on a slant. Hoop played great. Hoop blocked very well.
Yep.
I want to see more of Chief. I think Chief is ready to kind of be unleashed, and I would love to see him get some more opportunities. He was one of my call for the breakout guy going in this season. I've seen nothing that indicates anything other than him being able to do it. His blocking was good in this game as well. Yeah. We've got a lot of talent, man. There is a lot of talent on this offensive side of the football, and they played a very good game. You go to Pro Football Focus, and just the grades, overall grade for our offense was an 80, which is unheard of. That is a very, very high number. But, our top guys, Bitonio, Conklin, Njoku, Schwartz, Treader, Landry, Chubb, Baker, Jed, Kareem, Austin Hooper. I mean, we had 11 guys at 70 or above. That's pretty outrageous.
Were you surprised? Not surprised isn't the right word. 21 carries for Chubb and Hunt combined. Is that where it needs to be?
We didn't run a lot of offensive plays.
No, I'm just looking at it right now.
It's 21 carries and 28 passes?
Right, 54.
59 plays total is what we should be at. Because, there's going to be
the punts,
and there's going to be, penalties that count as snaps, but they're for guys on the play.
In terms of
actual plays. And Baker ran a couple times. What was our total runs?
Total runs 26.
So 26 runs, 28 passes, so that's 54, so we had 5 others. That's pretty good balance, honestly, and I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. We averaged 6 yards a carry. You love that. I mean, you're including Schwartz, you're including Jarvis. What a run by Jarvis, by the way, I love him on the touchdown. Just absurd.
Gutsy dude, man. God.
He's the best.
He's
the best. He even does little things on one of the plays that we threw out to Austin Hooper on one of the early bootlegs. I think it was our second pass completion of the game. He comes back and just gets in the way of the linebacker with his arms out like a special teams technique. He's just par excellence. The guy's an absolute stud. Yeah, we just have a lot of talent out there on that offensive side of the ball. We ran it effectively. We completed 75% of our passes.
Baker was great. You watched the film. I mean, how many misses?
Very few. There were a couple where you say, he could have looked here, he could have looked there.
Jeez, it's so picky, though. He still completes.
I was going to say, many cases where he said, he maybe could have done this. It was still a positive play. Positive plays in the NFL are what you're looking for. You're nitpicking. Say maybe the ball placement on that ball to Schwartz he'd like a little differently. The one to Njoku, it gets there. He had a throwaway. He had an attempted throwaway. That's 4 of the 7 incompletions that we could say right there off the top of our head. Janovich drops one over the middle. That's 5.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to think of what the other 2 may have been, but
not much.
No, not much. He had a very, very – he looked excellent. He looked poised. He looked in command. If his quarterback ranks, people make a lot of that. Schwartz doesn't trip. Schwartz walks into the end zone. That's a touchdown. And, the rating number looks better, but still right at 100, even with an interception. That's how efficient he was. 21-28 for 321, folks. We're over 10 yards an attempt. We averaged over 8 yards a play in this game. You go to the team statistics, this is against the Chiefs. Now, you'll say, okay, there's a statistic I'll throw out in a second. What do we have to clean up? But 8.2 yards per play to 6.5 for them. In the passing game, 10.1 yards a pass to 8.5 for them. And that's with Mahomes being absurd. Now, here's where we need to get better. They were 9 of 13 on third down. We were 2 of 7 on third down.
Yep.
You add those 2 turnovers, you're not going to win the football game. Turns out we did not. But there is a lot to be excited about this football team. Not in terms of moral victories. There are no moral victories. We should have won this game.
Yeah.
Nobody here is happy today. Nobody in this building. Nobody on the flight. I can tell you.
Quiet.
It was tough. Well, I had to do because of the situation, the limited number of people that are tiered in the traveling party. I had to do the post game interviews with some of the players, and I don't like doing that because they don't want to be doing it. But we all did our jobs and we're professional about it. But there was real pain. There was just like hurts, kind of like I know how much I hate losing, and I know what kind of a funk it puts me in, especially when they knew they had it on that stage at that stadium. There is a sense, many people in the Kansas City organization, because where I was, you saw those guys walk out like, we'll see you guys again. We'll see you guys again. We've got to earn our right to see them again. But I do believe that we're capable of doing it, and I think everybody in this building believes that, and I think everybody around the National Football League does. We made a statement without winning a football game. And, it was so different than the Thursday night game when the Cowboys hung with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and ultimately lose to the great quarterback at the end in some way, similar way that we did. The difference was in that game, it was the Bucs who turned it over 4 times and then still won. Yeah. In this case, we turned it over and almost won, but did not. No. We did not because of those mistakes.
Yeah, because of it. And now when you think about where we are now, what this week will be like, now it's about making sure that this fuels you forward, because we had a lot in it. You could tell we had a lot in it. And you got to refocus. I think playing at home is going to help a great deal. For the first time since 2019, a full house here on Sunday.
Yep.
I think that helps a great deal. We've talked a lot about the offense. We've talked about the turnovers. I want to get into your impressions on this defense and what you saw against the greatest test you can get in all of the National Football League, the Kansas City Chiefs. That is coming up next. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Welcome back into Cleveland Browns Daily. EOX Vantage, my friends, have that local presence, but the global footprint that you want, trusted by some of the world's biggest brands. This is a testimonial from an EOX Vantage client, Tom Darty, who's the Senior Vice President of Specialty Programs at the NIP Group. Tom says, quote, I have a saying working with EOX Vantage, if you dream it, they can build it. We generate lots of ideas for them to carry out. They've implemented everything we've come up with. We brainstorm ways to innovate and improve our company. And we use EOX Vantage for their infrastructure, coding, and programming capabilities, technological expertise, and experience working with those global brands. We're absolutely thrilled with our partnership. Now me talking, you can be too, and you can learn more about EOX Vantage by visiting www.eoxvantage.com or call 216-298-1616. Again, that's 216-298-1616. All right, first look at this defense. Now it's incomplete because Ronnie plays 5 plays. So you're on the other side of the field when this happens, right?
Yep.
One of the things that was really missed on the television broadcast, and I think misrepresented on the television broadcast, was the notion. It was almost presented on television as if Ronnie stepped on the guy on purpose. And very clearly, he did not. He got pushed back and was just trying to get his footing. I thought it was plainly obvious what was happening.
And their coach sprinted a good 15 yards to insert himself in the whole situation.
That's the next part of it.
Who put his hands on Ronnie?
He puts his hands on Ronnie
Outrageous.
And shoves him, and Ronnie just reacts, I think, as any man in the arena would, pushing back. Now, of course, you have to have better discipline. You can't do that. You heard Coach talk about it earlier. Okay, fine. But from the perspective of what happened was misrepresented and I saw it being misrepresented online where there's a lot of misrepresentation, frankly. But that was something that you saw. So you weren't even complete in terms of what you wanted the defense and what this defense will be. But in terms of what it was, what did you make of it? What did you make of who played? What did you make of who didn't play? I mentioned JOK earlier. I thought he would play more snaps than he did. There was obviously, I'm sure the heat was brutal, so I'm guessing that led to a lot of the rotations.
And I think they were very specific in their packages with their linebackers in terms of what they were going to be asked to do. And I think JOK had a couple coverages early in the game where he was in space with Kelsey, and Kelsey, there's one where he was supposed to have the inside leverage and keep Kelsey from the middle of the field, and Kelsey gave him a little nod to the outside, and he bit, and all of a sudden it looks like a too easy play, as many of these did in the middle of the field. What stood out defensively is that our 2 corners are excellent. They didn't even try Greg Newsome. He was targeted.
Boy, he was awesome.
He was targeted 1 time in this game, and it was a 4-yard check down to Clyde Edwards-Helaire. They did not test him as a receiver. They went after Denzel 7 times, 5 catches, 37 yards, so 5 yards an attempt. Great, we'll take that all day. I found that the front of our defense did an excellent job getting pressure on the quarterback. I'm talking about, first of all, Malik McDowell gets a pressure. He had 3 stops right at the line. He drew a penalty, a holding penalty, where he had another pressure. He was the highest-graded Pro Football Focus defensive player on the Browns. Ward, Newsome, JOK were the next 3, followed by Tack McKinley. I felt like Tack McKinley, he had 3 pressures on the day, got around the edge consistently. It almost makes you feel like when he's on the field, if you can get pressure up the middle, you're going to get the quarterback, because it felt like almost too often he came out around the edge and then there was that room to step out and roll outside. And so that'll be, I think, something they'll look at on the tape and try to figure out, okay, how do we contain these lanes a little bit better? Now, when you rush with only 4, which we did because you have to against him, those lanes get a little bit wider. Myles Garrett was credited, this is Pro Football Focus, with 8 pressures in this game. 8 pressures in this game. Jadeveon Clowney had 4, and the great stop on that 7-yard loss on that run play. Malik Jackson had 4 pressures. So we were all over Mahomes in terms of getting pressure with 4, not to mention Joe Jackson came in, and Jackson actually had the nice sack on one where McKinley kind of forced him around from the right side. Jackson came under on the left and met Mahomes as he was trying to come up. From a pressure standpoint, you did that. That's the highest rate KC has seen in years. Now, Patrick Mahomes, we played a lot of shell defense, played a lot of quarters and a lot of cover 3. We did that on 28 snaps, 71% of the time. We played cover 3 or cover 4. And it was working. You were getting that shell. You were making them matriculate the ball down the field. You held them really, other than that explosive play in the short field, you did a good job. Take the explosive play away, a one-play drive, which you can't take away ultimately. Take away the other one, which was a 15-yard field. Okay?
Yeah, right.
Their other 6 possessions, you had 2 punts and 3 field goals. So the other 6 possessions.
That's it, man.
You hold them to field goals and punts. 5 of the 6. Of course, there's a touchdown in there. So they get the 3 touchdowns. They get the 3 field goals. Is that math adding up right? Did they have 4 field goals? Oh, no. They had 4 touchdowns and 2 field goals with a missed go for 2. Does that sound right? 27 and 6, 33. That feels right to me.
I believe you have that.
That feels right to me.
Yeah, the 2 field goals, yeah.
So you gave up 1 touchdown on a full – you gave up 2 full field touchdowns if you take away the big play, which you can't. I understand that. But other than that one-play drive in the short field, they had 6 other possessions. They scored 2 touchdowns, they punted twice, and they had 2 field goals. That's winning defense against them.
It is.
That's 67% of your drives ending in not a touchdown. Against the Chiefs, that's winning defense. So the shells worked, and I know it frustrated a lot of the people in the audience. Now, what I will say, I do think a takeaway here is, so Mahomes against the zone, 22 of 28, 296 yards, 1 touchdown, 10 yards per attempt. Against man, 3 of 7 for 31 yards in the 8 snaps and a sack. I think we're going to, as we go forward, we're probably going to have to trust these corners a little more. I don't know how the loss of Ronnie changed maybe what you wanted to do a little bit on the back end, but theoretically speaking, you held that team to 6.5 yards per play and 8.5 yards per attempt, lower than both of our numbers. So the shell did its job. We talked about it earlier this week, you can't miss tackles. You've got to do a good job in yards after the catch. The Browns did. Of their 300-something yards passing, there were only 50 yards after the catch. We missed 4 tackles on the day. 2 of them were on 1 play. So you actually executed well. You have the one broken play that's probably going to count for 30 of those 50 yaks. I mean, what plays do you think of in your mind where they threw a little 5-yard pass and it turned into 20?
No.
It didn't happen.
No, I think when you look, watching it and living it in the moment, and then looking at some of the film as we've done since we've been here this afternoon, I think what I come away with is that their quarterback, there's a little bit of a Jordan thing to him, in that you can do everything right and it's not enough. His ability to throw a football like a baseball from any angle, with any base, at any depth, with accuracy and with velocity, I've never seen anything like it in my life. And if you would have told me that Miles had 8 pressures right after the game, I would have said, you're nuts. There's no way. Didn't feel like we were ever around him. Well, come to find out, we were around him all the time. It's just that he has an ability to throw from places and at angles that nobody else does. It's a credit to him.
Right. It is. Listen, he is incredibly good. He is. We executed a plan that was very effective, other than 1 freak play and 1 short field. You take the other 6 possessions, you did a great job. Now you can say you can't take, and you can't because it's on the scoreboard. It doesn't matter. You can't take that free play out of it. Where I think we need to do a better job is still on 3rd down and in the red zone. It felt, but then you have the nice stops in the red zone that lead to field goals. John Johnson makes unbelievable plays down in the red zone.
That's what I'm saying. Anything other than a touchdown against them is a win. Anything. Punts,
Yes.
field goals, or wins. So you made him punt twice, and you had 2 field goal attempts.
Yes.
That's 4 possessions that you won.
Right.
That's about all you're going to get.
I had the actual number
When
wrong on the yards
the
after
weather's
catch,
that
but
good, by the way, they aren't going to get more than that.
No.
You give me wind, snow, rain, okay, fine. But on perfect conditions, which is what it was hot, but perfect conditions, 4, that's pretty good.
It's very good. It's very good. We had more yards after the catch than they did. We missed 4 tackles. They missed, as a defense in this game, we missed 4 tackles. They missed, this is again Pro Football Focus's numbers. We missed 4, and they missed, 12. We executed. You saw a defense play actually at a high level. What you saw is an all-world offense that is all world. And people say, hey, they're going to throw it to Hill and Kelsey.
Yeah, the whole world knows that.
You've got to stop them. Listen, everybody knows that. The guys last year, Kelsey set the record for most receiving yards in a season in NFL history by a tight end. They had the most receiving yards and receiving touchdowns of any duo in the NFL a year ago. Everybody knows it every single week, and yet they're that good. Part of it is because their quarterback is dynamic, and the combination of his speed. These aren't excuses either, by the way. These are just facts.
It's the reality
and
of
I think
the opponent.
You, other than the bomb to Hill, you can live with what was going on. You really did kind of limit their vertical game.
Yeah.
And the bomb to Hill was not a play in structure, was not a blown coverage. It was an out of structure, tremendous play by a great quarterback and a great receiver. And it happens. You go back and watch that one on the All-22. John Johnson was prepared for what he was doing. He had him.
He's running with him.
He was ahead of him.
Yeah.
The ball would just happen to be thrown behind, and Mahomes said, why not? I'll take a shot at it. Guess what? Shot worked.
Shot worked. Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of the reality.
Defensively, though, and the conditioning needs to come. I think you saw that. Malik McDowell, Malik Jackson, super hot. They haven't played a full – when's the last time Malik McDowell's played a full game?
Michigan State.
Okay. And he
2016.
and he gutted out, and he was our top-graded defensive player. Malik McDowell is going to be a real force as this season goes on. This line is going to be very good. We're still not at full strength in the secondary. We've got to get there. We need to get Grant Delpit back on the field, and hopefully that's coming.
Yeah, and one thing that you're going to be defensively as this season goes along is Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is going to be somebody.
Yes.
He was drafted for games like this, just not in his first game as a pro.
Yep.
You know, I mean, Kelsey does this to everybody. Like, of course, this is who they're going to throw it to. They're the two best. It's the most prolific deep wide receiver in the game and the best offensive weapon in the game. That's who they have. And they got a kid who can throw it from any arm angle and throws a football like a baseball. What was the how hot was it? Was it hot, humid? What? Give me the game field.
It was not as bad as the preseason game against the Giants. That was hotter.
Okay.
That was hotter.
It's a lot less humidity. The
Yeah.
humidity was only like 40%. It was 90 degrees still. But
As long as if that humidity's down like that, that's manageable to say the least. What did you? Is that your? You've been there before, right? You been there?
I was there, and I want to say the year 2014 or 15 we played there. Johnny started.
Paul football.
He started.
the
He
last
actually
time.
played a good game.
So this is your first time with them at their apex, though.
Yes.
And in the first.
That was still Alex Smith, Jeremy Maclin.
So in that sense, where does it rate on your NFL experiences in terms of just everything?
Epic. It was perfect. It felt like it was awesome. Everything about it was great.
Their fans stand the entire game, basically.
Oh yeah, the lower bowl stands the whole game.
Yeah.
Really?
Whole game.
No one sits.
And they are loud and they are into it. And they were good. I got a lot of, you have a lot of back and forth. The stands are very close to the sideline. Real close. Closer than most stadiums. I think by a pretty wide margin.
So that would
I
impact.
mean, there wasn't enough room for the CBS, the big rig, the camera that runs along the field. There was no room on either side.
Okay.
Yeah, he was limited. He was stuck between the 30s.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one thing I appreciated from the television perspective, and just the way it was shot, because I'm guessing the cameras are so high, you could see a lot of things develop. Some of the places that where they have the cameras, it's a little tighter. It was awesome to be able to see a lot of the things develop as they did in the game.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was. I'm actually just watching the tape right now of the play where he throws the bomb to Hill. I don't know that there's, first of all, pulls it off. I don't think there's another quarterback in the world that would even think at that juncture, hey, I'm going to throw the ball. At the time that he throws the ball, he is running straight right at his 21-yard line. When he lets the ball go, Tyreek Hill is between the hashes at the opposing 44.
Okay.
At the time he lets the ball go.
Okay.
So it's not like Hill's even on the right sideline. So that's what? 10, 20, 30. He's about 40 yards and
Depth, too, right?
to the left of somebody sprinting to their right.
Yeah.
So you're kind of throwing across your body and
With all momentum going right, you're throwing back left
to the middle of the field.
to the middle of the field.
Which they tell you, not at least my quarterback coach
Not.
in Montana said, do not roll right and
Throw back to the middle.
No, don't do it. John Johnson's right there. There's no reason to believe that this is even a feasible thing. He ends up catching it right on the numbers at the 30. So he throws that 50 yards in the air minimum, not in a straight line. It's still inside on a dead sprint right. And it's just one of those. It's a fortunate broken
isn't
play.
he hit right as he throws it too? Isn't he pushed right as he's thrown it?
Jordan Elliott hits him. He's throwing it leaning back. He's falling.
He's falling away.
It's outrageous.
A fall away 50-yarder across his body.
There's 30 yards of the react right there for the game total because he caught it right at the 30.
Yeah, but the extraordinary is ordinary
That's to your point
for them.
When you say right, it's just
for him. You can do everything right, and it's not enough.
It was.
With
Clowney and Tack both forced him out of the pocket. You had bracketed Travis Kelce on that play. Nobody else was open anywhere on the field.
You chase him out, you knock him down, and he throws it 50 yards across his body back to the left to the fastest guy in the NFL, who sees it, stops, and then walks in.
Our guy did it. And then people are, John Johnson. John Johnson, you watch this game, made a bunch of great plays, not getting balls away at the goal line.
Yeah.
They're good.
They're good.
We're good. We should have won that game. We did not. And the people that we will have to look at, you won't be looking at Mahomes and Kelce and Hill, as great as they are, Chris Jones, who had a monster game as well. You're going to look at yourself, the Cleveland Browns. Say, we don't put that ball on the ground twice, we win this game.
Yep.
And you do.
Joe Thomas up next for the Joe Thomas Hour. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Social Security benefits have been denied. Call the disability lawyers at 1-800-ELK-OHIO. Elk & Elk is a proud partner of your Cleveland Browns. And with that, we bring on the Hoff for the Joe Thomas Hour of Cleveland Browns Daily. Hoff, good to talk to you, my friend. Z and I have talked about this for about an hour, and, you get a whole day to kind of reflect and come up with kind of the way you feel on it. Where are you today after what happened yesterday?
I feel good, guys. I feel just like you guys. I heard you say before, we should have won that game. And to walk out of that stadium for the Cleveland Browns with the most difficult circumstances to open your season possible, with the expectations and the burden of those great expectations, or the, as Beau likes to say, what do you call it, the blessing of high expectations?
It's
to walk out of that stadium.
That's right.
Feeling the way we did.
The privilege of expectations.
I give Beau credit.
The privilege of expectations.
The privilege. That was the word. The privilege. You've got to be so excited because everything was going against the Browns going into this game, right? All the talk, all training camp was Super Bowl, this is our year, and everything was set up for them to lay an egg and be full of themselves after what had happened throughout the last 9 months. They didn't do that. They came in as prepared and as focused as they possibly could, and they outplayed the Chiefs in their own home stadium. The defense, in my opinion, played great. I know there's some bozos on Twitter that don't think Joe Woods did a great job. I thought the game plan was excellent. And except for your punter dropping a snap, which probably happens, once every 1,000 punts in the NFL, and an unfortunate fumble by a guy who hardly ever fumbles, the game is won handily. And I would say you got to be also really excited that Baker Mayfield played lights out. He played exceptional. His decision-making was outstanding. His accuracy was fantastic. And as a fan, you're saying, okay, honestly, now in hindsight, on Monday morning, I'm not glad we lost, but the fact we lost is going to give us a great chip on our shoulder when we go and see these guys in the playoffs, because you know that you're going to have to go through Kansas City, or they're going to have to come through Cleveland, but you're going to have to play them at some point in the playoffs. And going into that game with a loss from week one, I think gives you great motivation. Whereas if you would have won this game, maybe you don't have that same motivation. Maybe there's a tendency to say, hey, we already beat them in their place. Now we got them in the playoffs in our place. It's going to be easy, but you're not going to have that. You're going to have that additional motivation that this team, Baker Mayfield, those guys, that's the things that they feed off of. So I really love the situation we're in.
I do too, and this has a chance to become a very good rivalry. Now, the Browns have to take care of their business in the division first and foremost, but you've got to win. It cannot be a rivalry of close games. You have to beat them at a time that matters and a time that hurts them. Hoff, take us in the locker room like only you can. You played nearly flawlessly you probably played for about 50 of the 60 minutes, but it wasn't good enough. Do you take away, we could hang? I feel like this group knew they could hang. I don't feel like that was a news flash to them. What's the reaction to a game like this?
Well, I think you're disappointed, but to me, that's what makes me really excited, right? To go out there and outplay the Chiefs and to have that locker room disappointed, that says a lot about where their mentality is and where their sights are set. Like, they're not going to say it because they're very well trained and very well coached by Mr. Kevin Stefanski, and they're not going to talk about Super Bowl. But this team expects themselves to win every single game, and after this weekend, they're expecting themselves to be absolutely a Super Bowl contender. And I just am very excited about that. I'm very excited about the situation they're in, because now they get a chance to go in on Monday morning and they can correct a few things. They can be hard on themselves, and it's just going to drive them even more. I think having those moments early on in the season that drive you are always a great thing. Like, when you look back at Andy Reid's teams throughout history, the Eagles, the Chiefs now, they have a really hard training camp, and a lot of times they've started slow. But a lot of times that adversity early on in the season, it makes you a better team for that stretch run, because we know that what the Browns do this season is going to be determined by November, December, and then January. Like, that's what's going to make your mark. Yeah, you want to win those early ones, of course, because it sets you up for the greatness down the stretch. But this is going to become a battle-hardened team, and I think what you saw on Sunday starts putting a little bit of armor on this team for that run in December and January.
Joe, I said this off the top of the show. I felt like a win here would have meant more to us than a loss would have hurt them. It felt the way we started the game, the intensity, the execution we were so gutsy, Joe. I mean, of course, that's what coach is, but going for it on fourth down, getting on fourth and down, getting the penalty on the extra point, saying the heck with it, we're getting 2 points on this thing. So aggressive, played exactly the way you wanted to play. Do you fear at all, and I ask this because you've been in those rooms and I have not, do you fear at all too much of a letdown from not being able to finish it? How do you take adversity and flip it positive quickly?
Yeah, I think it depends on your personality, right? You don't train every dog the same way. You don't train every kid the same way when you're coaching them in youth football. And this is a team that it seems to really do a good job bouncing back. And it does a great job when they have that adversity, because that's just their personality. And that really, it reflects a lot on Baker, right? Because that's who he is as a person. Like, he does his best stuff when people count him out, when he has that adversity. And a lot of times your team takes on the personality of your head coach or your quarterback. So I think this is actually, it's a really good thing. And like you mentioned, I was really impressed early on in the game with Kevin Stefanski. He had like a mercenary type approach, right? Very methodical. Okay, hey, we got a penalty. It's an extra point try. We're going for 2. And he didn't even think about it. Didn't even flinch. It was a don't flinch. We're just going to slit your throat mentality. That was awesome to see. And I like that robotic approach that everybody in like the front office and the coaching staff sort of takes towards the game of football, because that's championship mentality right there. This is exactly what we're supposed to do, and we're going to go out and do it. It's that workmanlike mentality that the team has taken on. Fun to watch.
Joe, you and we all watched some of the Browns' offensive tape from this game. Browns averaged 8.2 yards per play in this loss to the Kansas City Chiefs. That's the top figure in the National Football League for Week 1. Of course, the Ravens and the Raiders play tonight and have a chance to go after that. But 8.2 yards per play. That's legitimately elite offensive football, is it not?
Absolutely. And I'm not going to say that the Chiefs are the best defense in the NFL, but they're a pretty good defense. And for the Browns to be able to go out and basically run the ball at will the entire game, that says a lot about who the Browns are again as a rushing team. I think they're going to be even better as a rushing attack than they were last season, which gets you really excited because the Chiefs had no answer for 13 personnel. We were talking about that this morning, guys. When the Browns had 3 tight ends in the game, the Chiefs had no answer because they can't get big, because then you just spread them out. And then between Chief and Hoop and Harris and Bryant, there's no linebackers in the NFL that can stay with those guys in pass coverage when you split them out. And if you stay small, then you just get into your rushing formations, and they're too good of run blockers, and our guys are too big. Wyatt Teller, Joel Bitonio are just way too big coming through that line of scrimmage with those 2 big backs behind to be able to stop the running game. And so you're able to set up exactly what this offense is good at, is let's run the ball, and then let's kill them with play action.
Joe, this loss is, in a way, it's fun though, right? Because it's 3 or 4 plays. This is the NFL at the highest level, right? I mean, this is what the best franchises, this is how you're judged. You're judged by these games. These teams are, the whole idea is everybody's 8-8. So the talent difference isn't that big. We went toe-to-toe with the Chiefs. There are 3 things for sure that happened that we did that would have impacted the outcome of this game. You lose, it stinks. You had a lot in it. It's bitter to lose like that. But there is fun in realizing that we can now look at a game, and Browns fans can look at a game in a different way. You can go toe-to-toe with one of the best teams in the league. There's 4 or 5 plays here or there. And this is what the NFL is like when you're good. This is it not?
Yeah, I mean, it was a fun day. I know that I had a sour taste in my mouth when I went to bed last night, but when I woke up on Monday, I felt really good about the situation we're in, right? And let's not lose sight of what's the goal of the season. Win the Super Bowl, right? Like, beating the Chiefs in Week 1 would have been awesome. It would have been fun. We would have been celebrating in the streets of Cleveland Sunday night, but, like, that's not the goal for the season. That was not to beat the Chiefs or shock the world. And the fact that they played the way they did, which, in my opinion, they played really, really good outside of a couple turnovers down the stretch, which they obviously have to clean up. You can't have. But they lost. And the rest of the NFL is going to say, oh, they saw the score. Oh, the Browns lost to the Chiefs. That's kind of what they expected. Oh, it was a close game. But this gives the Browns an opportunity to kind of stay under the radar a little bit throughout the season, right? The thing that I was kind of nervous about was obviously expectations were really high. Lots of people were talking about Cleveland. Is this their year? You go out week one, you smoke the Chiefs the way that they did in the first half. You win by double digits. You give Patty Mahomes his first loss in September ever. And all of a sudden, people are like, holy smokes, Browns are for real. We better button up our chin straps. And you don't have a chance to kind of sneak up on people. You don't have a chance to play that underdog at all the rest of the season. But now, because people don't watch every single game in the detail that a fan does of your team, you still got a chance to really kind of sneak up on people a little bit and kind of fly under the radar, which, like I mentioned before, that's the type of personality this team has, and that's where we're at our best. You get your best work during the week, and then I think you get your best performances on Sunday.
How much does, when you were in the league, because you bring up an interesting point there, unless the team is on your schedule or you're playing them soon, how much are you really up on what happened? If you just look at the box score, you'd say, oh, the Browns played a good game. You'd say, oh, but, you wouldn't understand the dominance that actually occurred for a good portion of the game. Do people in the league actually know about that, or only if it's a team you're watching to get ready to play them?
I don't think most players know. I didn't know. You don't have enough time in the day to be able to pay attention to all 32 NFL teams. You're gonna watch the primetime game, right? So like I would come home on a Sunday because most of my games were at 1 o'clock, and come home on Sunday, and by the time you get home, it's already 6 or 7. You grab a bite to eat, and you sit down, and it's a Sunday night game. So if they played a 1 o'clock game, which most of the NFL does, they didn't even see the Browns versus the Chiefs. They sat down, they watched the Sunday night game. Maybe they watched the whole thing. Maybe they got a little tired. They had their dinner, maybe a couple pops, a couple beers, and went to bed. And you woke up the next day, and unless you were playing the Browns, that was the end of it. You saw the score, oh, Browns lost. That was it.
Yeah, it's wild. All right, lots to get to with the Hoff. Hey Joe is coming up. You want questions for the Hoff? Tweet them to Gibbe at Browns_daily. We will get those. We'll do a little word association coming up. We got to go around the league, of course, too. A crazy week 1 in the National Football League, especially in Joe's home state of Wisconsin, where it's crazy to make sense.
How about the conspiracy theories?
Oh, boy, they're flying, aren't they?
I love it.
Holy cow.
That's not possible, is it?
No, it can't be.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, it was a crazy week 1. Lots to get to. It's the Joe Thomas Hour, Cleveland Browns Daily, right here on 850 ESPN Cleveland. all up. All right, welcome back to the Joe Thomas Hour of Cleveland Browns Daily, and Beau Bishop here from my friends at Raising Cane's. Raising Cane's presents the other rules of football. Rule 1, serving cooked-to-order chicken finger meals always earns you extra points. And number 2, there's no penalty for excessive cane sauce dipping. Raising Cane's mobile app, it's ready to tackle all your chicken finger game day needs. And when it comes to winning game day, Cane's rules. One love and a proud sponsor of Ohio State Athletics. Go Bucks. All right, guys, let's play a little word association. I'll give you a player. You guys give me a thought. Hoff, I'll start with you, and I'll start with Jarvis Landry.
He just continues to do all the little things. Like everyone notices him when he makes the catches and he runs in for the touchdowns, but he's like the ultimate workman receiver. And as a former offensive lineman, I got a lot of respect for a guy who's willing to do that dirty work. He reminds me a lot of Andrew Hawkins. Obviously a better player as far as receptions and such, but a guy that's willing to go in there and block. He's willing to go there, do the backside cutoffs. He's willing to dive after fumbles. I mean, you just don't see receivers that are built like that. The competitive fire, it's awesome.
He's the engine, man.
I love him. I love him. I love everything
Jarvis.
about it.
Everything, yeah.
So heady. You talked about Hoff. We used that special teams technique on just a nice little, check down on that boot to Austin Hooper, and he wanted to help him get 5 extra yards by blocking. There's nothing that he won't do to help this football team win. There's nothing. And he's smart. He always knows his assignment. He's always thinking like a coach on the field. We love him. I love him. I think he's everything that if we had 53 Jarvis Landrys, I don't think we ever lose.
No, he's awesome. He absolutely is. And when we had him on Friday, we talked about, I think a lot of what has happened here the last few years started with him and the acquisition of him. Z, this one comes to you, Mr. Schwartz.
Speed kills, and I'll tell you, there were a couple other opportunities maybe to take some shots to Anthony Schwartz, and I think that the Browns have really found something with him in terms of his ability to stretch it vertically, horizontally, and I think, Hoff, and I'm curious to get your take, I think he is the most dangerous receiver we can have on the field in the 13 personnel group. Odell, a better route runner, probably generates a little more man-to-man separation. Of course, he's Odell Beckham Jr. This is Anthony Schwartz's first game. But it's the speed that he has that is going to cause, and he's got different speed than probably anybody really other than Tyreek Hill in this league. He will cause safeties to be a few steps back further. And now that it's all on tape, and you saw it, it's speed vertically, but it's also crossing routes, the throwback on the 3rd and 3 sprint option left. I think that it was an impressive debut, and you can see how he can be utilized, and it would not surprise me that he continues to play a big role. Your Jarvis Landry after the game say, yeah, he was great, and he played a big role. He should play a big role going forward.
Hoff, when you go ahead.
Surprised me because he wasn't just catching go balls. Oh, I'm sorry. I was just saying, we all knew he was going to be sort of like the go ball guy and the end around guy, the jet sweep. But he surprised me. He did some nice things underneath, catching some balls on the inside. And, I mean, if he can develop that part of his game, he's got a chance to be a huge weapon for this offense. You mentioned how important he is in 13 personnel because of the space that he creates for those tight ends to work. And really, one of the things that teams are going to try to start doing with 13 personnel is when you spread those tight ends out, they're going to bring the safeties down to try to add bracket coverage on your tight ends because, like we mentioned, those linebackers can't stay with them. But when you have Schwartz in there, the safeties can't do that because they can't play that close to the line of scrimmage. They can't cheat off of him. They have to back up because they're worried about him going over the top.
Joe, it's funny. When I was watching the game on television, I thought, gosh, we can't get close to Mahomes. We're not getting any pressure on Mahomes. Well, then you go watch the tape and you go, well, God, we were around him all day. Yeah. It's just that he can throw it from any angle, and he throws a football like a baseball. So sometimes you don't even really, even when you're close, he can get out of it. Our pass rush, and I know we had to play a lot of guys. I think the heat was a big factor. What did you make of the pass rush and the defensive line and what it could be this season for the Browns?
Well, I thought our edge rush was awesome. Like I usually, when I'm watching our defense, I'm usually drawn to watching Miles, obviously because of my relationship with him, because he's a great player, but also he's playing over the left tackle. And Orlando Brown, who I have a lot of respect for, who they just paid and they brought in from Baltimore, I don't think he got a glove on Miles the entire game. Like, Miles was running around him, he was running under him, he was throwing him to the side and beating him to the inside. Miles was put on a clinic. It was just the Browns didn't have a lot of pass rush from the inside. Their defensive tackles, they were getting tired. You could really tell, and I know you guys mentioned that already. The Heat, those are the guys that are most affected on the defensive side of the football by the Heat because they're naturally bigger guys. They're usually getting double teamed, which takes a little bit more energy out of you. And then when you're trying to chase a guy like Patrick Mahomes around, then they just get tired so fast. And you saw it in the second half, especially when the Chiefs had the ball the majority of the time because of the turnovers in that third quarter. Our defensive tackles were having a hard time hustling to the ball, hustling to the sidelines because they were out of gas. And that really hurt the pass rush because now you got Tack McKinley, you got Jadeveon Clowney, you got Myles Garrett winning on the edge consistently. But Patrick Mahomes is just able to step up into the pocket, and then you don't even notice the pressure that they're getting from the edge. So I thought our edge rushers were awesome. We just need a little bit more from our interior guys. We need them to push those interior 3 offensive linemen back so that Patrick Mahomes or the next quarterback doesn't have a chance to step up and escape the problems.
Joe, I want to ask you about when you rush with 4, which you really have to do against Mahomes. We did blitz 10 times, but you've got to try to rush with 4. We got the pressure. He was just spectacular. Some of the throws that we were all watching together that he made while getting hit or just off his back foot, it's kind of hard to understand how he's able to do that. But when you as an offensive line, or if you had a quarterback who had some mobility, when a team would rush with 4, what challenges does that present for containment in terms of lanes? Because with only 4, there's a lot of space as opposed to that 5th or an add-on blitzer coming in at a 5th or a 6th guy filling one of those gaps.
Well, right. It clouds things and escape lanes when you are adding 5 or 6 guys. And when you have a guy like Patrick Mahomes who doesn't get enough credit for his mobility, like there was one time in the beginning of the game where Tack McKinley, I think it was, had a dead in the rights running right at him chance to hit him, and Patrick just gave him a little head fake and got out of there and made him fall to the ground. And so even when you win, if you're the only guy there, a quarterback that's a good athlete like Mahomes, he's got a really good, easy opportunity because he's got a lot of space to work with. You got to really constrict guys like that. And so you got to be much more disciplined. And when you talk about rushing mobile quarterbacks, you're trying to constrict the pocket. You're not trying to win and run around your rushing lanes, because even if you do win and you run around, he's just got so much. He's got time that it's going to be really hard to get him down if he sees you at all.
All right, the next one, Gibby wants Greg Newsome and John Johnson. Let's fold it into the secondary. Of course, it's not complete because Ronnie Harrison plays 5 plays, Joe. But what you saw from this secondary against the best passing attack in the league, let's be plainly clear on this. What did you think of Newsome, Johnson, 2 of the new faces?
Well, Newsome was exceptional. I mean, I didn't even notice him, which is exactly the type of game you want to have, especially for a rookie. That was my dream as a left tackle. Always, hey, if nobody even noticed me out there, I usually did a pretty good job. Denzel was outstanding per the usual. So cornerbacks were phenomenal. I mean, we've already right now in these young players' careers, we've got probably one of the best duos of cornerbacks in the NFL. I'm not sure off the top of my head, without doing research, who I would take over our guys right now. I mean, they were awesome. Thought John Johnson did a great job. Obviously, there was that one time, which was just kind of bad luck, when you've got Tyreek Hill in man coverage and you're in great position, the ball gets underthrown. You're trying to make a play on the ball because you're reading Tyreek's eyes and his hands, and so you turn your head, and unfortunately, you just kind of guessed wrong in that moment. So obviously, it turned out to be a huge play in the game, but overall, the secondary, I thought they did a great job. You could see the game plan was, all right, early on, they mixed it up a little bit more, but Browns take a big lead. Browns offense is pretty much unstoppable, so now Joe Wood says, all right, we'll give them the running game, we'll give them the underneath stuff, because usually they don't have the patience to go to it, and even if they do, by the time our offense gets the ball back, we're going to score, and it shortens the game. So I thought that was the right strategy. Overall, I think the secondary did a great job, especially when you're considering who they had to go against, which was the best passing attack in the NFL and maybe one of the best ones the NFL's ever seen.
Yeah, and in the coverage, when you rush 4, that gives you 7 guys in coverage. I thought the back end did well. Look, I know that people keep saying, well, Tyreek Hill and Kelsey, they hurt us over the middle of the field. everybody knows in the NFL that they're going to be throwing the ball to Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, and I have not yet found the team that stopped them. And I remember, what did he have, 200 yards and 3 touchdowns and a quarter against the Bucs, who went on to win the Super Bowl last year.
Right.
And they knew what he was certainly capable of. How do you kind of shore up, or did you see anything from our underneath coverage? And, this is Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah's first game. This is a tough baptism by fire. There were a couple times his responsibility, it either was a man or it was some type of a matchup zone where he had the inside leverage. He just couldn't hang with Travis Kelce. How do we get better there, and what did you see from us really in that area of the defense? And I think so many people are concerned about, but what I'll go back to is we didn't miss tackles, and for the most part, we limited their yards after the catch.
Guys, the strategy was to give them the short and underneath stuff. So when the strategy is to give them that, you can't be mad when they take it and they have some success at it. The idea that you can just take away everything on the Chiefs passing game is a folly. It's a false prophet. It's impossible. It's like, as a left tackle, when I was going against Dwight Freeney, I knew I couldn't take away everything, so I was going to take away his spin move. And if he ran around the edge and he beat me, so be it. You're trying to die by the thing that the guy does the worst. Because when you're playing these elite all-pro type guys, you're not going to just shut everything they do down. There's a reason they get paid. There's a reason they're the best in the game at their position. So you can't be too stupid to think you can just shut everything down. That's when you have that type of an ego, that's when Tyreek Hill goes 5 catches, 3 touchdowns, and all of them are over 70 yards. And that's what you can't have when you're winning. You were playing most of the entire game with the lead. So the only way you lose, if everything goes sort of as it's been going, is if Tyreek Hill start catching touchdown passes over your head because you think you can take away everything.
All right, Joe, this one from Twitter. Randy Wagner tweets the show. Why do you think JOK and Hollywood played such a low percentage of snaps?
That's a good question. Hollywood, I think it was just a matter of the 13 personnel was working so effectively, especially with Schwartz in there, that Hollywood is not a great deep threat because he doesn't have elite speed. So if you put him in there in a lot of those 13 personnel and a lot of those personnels where you're 21, where you're running the football, 2 tight ends, 1 fullback, you kind of lose some of that stretch and you lose the ability to kind of push those run support safeties deep. So I think that had a lot to do with it. I think if you're going to play a team that maybe is really good at stopping the run, which the way the Browns ran the football yesterday, I'm not sure they're going to run into anybody like that this year. But if, let's just say for argument's sake, you're playing a team that is really good at stopping the run and you go into some of your 11 personnel where you're putting 3 receivers on the field, now I can see Hollywood playing a bigger role in those situations because now you can put Jarvis, Odell, Hollywood on the field. You can put Chief, you can put Hoop in there and Nick Chubb, and then you can sort of attack from the top end down versus where they wanted to attack the line of scrimmage to the top end in this game because of the matchup issues that our tight ends provided to their defense. JOK, I think maybe part of the reason he didn't play as much is because for the most part, their game plan worked really well, and as a rookie, maybe you get a little bit nervous going in there and getting 65 snaps against the best tight end in the game, and what they had going was working pretty well. So don't try to force it too early, I would say.
I think at least early on they wanted to play these linebackers in specific situations. He played the second most snaps of any linebacker. Walker played 62, Owusu-Koramoah 25, Mack 22, Taki 22, Malcolm Smith 17. And Malcolm Smith last year was our pass specialist. He was top 10 in Pro Football Focus pass grades. He had an interception, remember, back against Dwayne Haskins in week 3 at home. He played very, very well. This was not a great game for him, and it just seemed that whenever his responsibility was around Travis Kelce, that's where the ball went, especially in the red zone. And I think that, and Joe, you tell me, in the red zone, is it harder to play some of those zones when you can just hit those stick routes? Is that where you play more man? Is it, how do you balance that out? And I think, look, a lot of zones and mans have similar principles in the middle of the field. It's a matchup zone. Kelce's very good, but I think Malcolm Smith to stay in that role, and I think ultimately, eventually, you would like all those pass snaps to go to Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah and his athleticism.
Yeah, and I think they'll go that way as the season wears on, because they obviously want JOK to be a huge part of this defense, but he is a rookie. Let's not forget. I mean, not all rookies look like Greg Newsome in their first game, and I think they were probably concerned a little bit about busted coverages, especially. You got to remember the mindset when you're playing with a huge lead against this team. You're saying, all right, we can't give up the huge play. We can't have coverage busts. Like, those are the things that allow the team to get back right away. You obviously can't have turnovers, which they had, but to have the lead the way they did, and I think the coaches potentially got maybe just a little nervous that JOK potentially had a chance because of his status as a rookie in his first game, going to have maybe a coverage bust. They were saying, all right, let's measure it a little bit. Additionally, it was super hot. Outside of defensive tackles, now your linebackers, they're the ones that are getting gassed. So they definitely wanted a little bit of a rotation there. But your question about the red zone, it's pretty dangerous to play zone against Travis Kelce in the red zone. Really what you want to do is you kind of want to hit him at the line of scrimmage and then pick him up in man with like a safety. So you want to kind of slow his release from the line of scrimmage. You want to disrupt the timing a little bit, so Mahomes, if that's his first look, he sees that he's getting jammed at the line of scrimmage and he gets off of him and he starts looking somewhere else. If you play zone, I mean, it's kind of like stealing, because Travis can just get into the end zone. He's so good at just turning around and getting the football. One of those where the ball's released before he even turns around, like a stick route like you're talking about. He's very dangerous. So there's a lot of mixed coverages when you do get to the red zone. There's a lot of man and zone concepts. And when you've got a guy like Travis Kelce, you really want to try to put two defenders on him when you do get down there.
All right, coming up next, we will go around the league, take a quick peek ahead to the home opener Sunday against Houston. The Joe Thomas Hour of Cleveland Browns Daily rolls on right here on 850 ESPN Cleveland. All right, welcome back into the Joe Thomas Hour of Cleveland Browns Daily. And gambling without setting a limit on how much you're going to wager or how you'll play is like playing a football game without a game plan. It's probably going to end up in a loss. So always set limits beforehand. Get more tips like this at keepitfunohio.com. Let's go around the league with Joe and Z. And let's start in our division. Pittsburgh's win at Buffalo, Joe. On the surprise meter, how high did that register for you?
I wasn't shocked. I knew those teams were both pretty fairly matched. I think if you look at the score and you look at some of the stats, you realize that Big Ben did not play very well. And they were not able to run the football, even though supposedly that was going to be the big change this year. Oh, we're going to run the football. Ben's going to throw the ball down the field again. Big Ben, I think, had one of the lowest average per completion distances of all the quarterbacks in the NFL. So really not improvement there, but bad news for Browns fans. The defense was really good for the Steelers. TJ Watt's still a beast.
Yeah, they had pressure on like 50% of Josh
Constantly.
Allen's dropbacks.
Yeah.
I wasn't – listen, if you paid attention to the scores, we were not surprised by that outcome. But we could be if the Ravens win tonight. We might be the only team in our division without a victory after 1 week. Very early, obviously, but our division, again, is very good.
Well, and that goes to the next game we're going to talk about, which is the Bengals. So they come out guns a-blazing. Burrow's throwing it all over the place. Jamar Chase, no worry about the dropsies. Burrow got hit around the leg, and they went pretty conservative after that. They do win in overtime. It's a crazy end of the game, but nevertheless, they win at home against a team that typically is a playoff team, Joe. And we said, especially if Chase goes – their offense, and Mixon looked good too. He was running with a lot of authority.
He is good.
Well, I know, but last year he didn't play a lot.
Right.
They got a lot of weapons, Joe.
Yeah, they're definitely going to be the team that probably scares me the most in the division. Not that they're one of the better teams. Actually, they're probably going to finish last, but they're the team that at any Sunday they can beat us, the Ravens. I mean, they're dangerous like that because of what they can do on offense. They can score with anybody in the league. Joe Burrow obviously playing good football already, and they're a team that you could mistakenly take them a little bit too lightly and get an L on the schedule that you don't want. So definitely you're going to have to watch out for the Bengals this year.
Lots of weapons. That's what it
Yes.
comes down to. Beyond
They're
that,
frisky. We've talked about
very.
it for a long time.
yeah. What happens in Green Bay, Joe? You live in the great state of Wisconsin.
Oh.
What do you make sense of that?
It's a conspiracy. He's come back to tank them. That's what people are saying. He came back to
Hey.
torpedo them. He's so angry that he will reach a level of petty that we have never seen before in the National Football League.
The
I don't believe
unprecedented
that, but
pettiness.
that
if
was
the case.
wild performance.
Yeah.
Isn't it bizarre? Obviously, the performance was crazy. I mean, for Aaron Rodgers to throw 2 interceptions in one game is like unheard of. Like the guy just doesn't make mistakes like that. The offense just looked terrible, and if anything, you would say, oh, the defense will probably struggle a little bit in Green Bay, but offense is going to be so solid. Aaron Rodgers, he knows this is his last chance. His legacy, he needs another Super Bowl victory, and he goes and totally lays an egg. And on top of that, then after the game, he kind of acts like it was no big deal. So I'm not a conspiracy guy, but I kind of think you guys are right. I feel like he is
We're not
just
saying
the
it, for
ultimate,
the record.
biggest petty guy ever. And he's like, I'm going to stick it to him one last chance.
It's crazy. He looked like an extra from Sam Crow. He's got that long hair from Sons of Anarchy. He's got a bandana on. I don't know what the heck to make of it. That was a crazy, crazy game. It was also pretty wild how Tennessee just got slammed by Arizona, just routed at home. And Derrick Henry, nothing.
Well,
but you got a front run with him, and they were chasing.
They're a front-running team. We
But he
went
was
in there
stopped
and
inside the
waxed them.
5 too. Like he was, I don't know.
At
There's
some point,
it's
taking
gotta wear
800
out.
carries a season is going to, yes, it has to take something out of him.
Yeah, it's shocking to me because usually defenses are ahead of offenses earlier on in the season, and Vrabel's a defensive guy. And I'll give you Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins. They got a lot of weapons in Arizona on offense, but their offense is very simple. If there was one game that I thought, hey, Titans defense is going to have it out for the Arizona offense, this is going to be the one on the calendar where it's going to be maybe a little bit of a defensive battle, but I think the Titans are going to win because they're going to run the football effectively. So that game went totally the opposite. that I expected, and Vrabel has got to be just absolutely fuming for his defense to play as poorly as they did and give up so much offense to such a basic offense like the Cardinals run.
So I think, you're interested to see what Jameis would do in New Orleans, what that would look like through the 5 touchdown passes. But first guy to do that with under 150 yards passing. Nevertheless, throws for 5 touchdowns. Actually kind of gets made famous for what he says afterwards with his personal trainer. My trainer told me.
What did he tell me?
Be prepared, or whatever. That's
a great quote.
Great quote. The other one I think everyone was interested in was the Rams and what it would look like for Matt Stafford in that offense. Stafford had played in Detroit, obviously, his entire career. The announcing team almost made it seem like he was in jail his entire career, having to play in Detroit. Joe, it was kind of an interesting tone they took, as if they weren't ever playing football in Detroit. But he was freed, and so too was that offense. McVay kind of doing what we kind of thought maybe he would do, is kind of show off the new toy in Stafford's arm.
Yeah, the funny thing to me is I think people forget that the Lions they actually had some pretty good seasons when Stafford was there, but because they fired, I forget, was it David Caldwell or who the head coach
Jim
was?
Caldwell.
Jim Caldwell.
Playoffs. Jim Caldwell, former Colts coach. They fired him when they took him to the playoffs, so everyone just kind of has this assumption that the Lions were just crap forever, but they actually had some pretty good teams, and he had a lot of offense when he was there. But I digress. But yeah, I think it's not really a big surprise with the Rams' weapons and with Sean McVay and with a guy who can finally really rip it and open up the offense the way Sean McVay wants with Matt Stafford, that they look really good already at this point in the season. And I think they're definitely going to be up there in the Super Bowl contender category when we get to December in the NFC side of the game.
I am amazed. First of all, Stafford was great. We talked earlier about some of the strange commentary in the game about how he needs to really press, make him the threat of his running on these bootlegs. Like, no, he doesn't. No. He's doing just fine.
No.
You don't need to worry about Matt Stafford running. I don't know. He's not comfortable. He's just throwing dimes everywhere. He's doing just fine. But are you guys surprised by, I don't know what the right word is. I'll let you guys pick the adjective, but the blank of Sean McVay, that even after this game, it still felt like he was trash-talking Jared Goff. Like,
go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I'm just curious. Yeah, I totally agree with you guys. Like, what did Goff do to Sean McVay to deserve the vitriol that he just continually gets? Like, he hasn't been on your team in, 9 months? And you still can't help but, make sure everybody knows that he was the one that was holding you back. Yeah. And you should have had a Super Bowl, except for that dastardly Jared Goff guy, who actually probably exceeded, where his ceiling was. Goff was the number 1 pick, but he wasn't one of these number 1 picks that had this great potential. He was sort of a weaker arm guy, not a great athlete, but more accurate, good decision making. That's who he is, right? And so it's just amazing that Sean McVay still feels like he's got to go out of his way to dog the poor guy who's not even in town anymore. He's not even in the same part of the country.
He sent him to Detroit.
He sent him to Detroit.
Sent him to Detroit.
And if you think about, Goff, and you would think the way that he is described by McVay, which is, I guess, maybe another way of him saying to say, look, this is how much of a genius I am. I basically played with this guy who has no business being in the National Football League. And you go and then you look at his stats. In 2018, he throws for 4,700 yards, 32 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. The year before that, 4,000 yards, 28 touchdowns, 7 picks. Then he had a down year in 19, 4,700 yards, 22 touchdowns, 16 picks. Then the year after that, he completes 70% of his passes, 4,000 yards, 20 touchdowns. And it's like this guy was you would think he was the worst quarterback who's ever played the game. He wasn't. He just wasn't his guy. By the way, his debut there in Detroit, 338, 3 touchdowns and a pick.
Yeah, he did all right. He did all right. I don't know
made it interesting. I don't know what
San Francisco was doing.
I don't know. Listen, nerd, why'd they stop playing offense? Nerd.
It's wild.
Yeah, my dad was not pleased by that near comeback.
Joe, let's close it out here. Come full circle. So you have the bitterness of the loss, the disappointment. We know what we had in the game, how important it was for us to win it. You have the home opener in front of these fans for the first time in a full house since 2019. What does this week of practice need to be like for this football team here in Cleveland?
Well, it's got to be extremely sharp. Obviously, it goes without saying. You've got to make sure that you don't make those critical errors in the next game like you did in this last game. Obviously, the guys that made those mistakes will probably feel terrible, but there's a lot of pressure in this game, right? Because in the NFL, the beginning of the season is so important because how you start kind of sets that trajectory, and it either adds pressure or relieves pressure, and you have to get to 1-1 at this point in the season because I think everybody was kind of expecting, you know what, we walk out of Kansas City, we play really well, we can still feel good about things even if we don't get the win, but this is one of those ones you have to win. You have to be dominant to prove to all the fans, but also to yourself and your teammates that we are for real. This is our championship this season that we're going to be marching on, and you got to take care of the opponents that you're supposed to take care of in a workmanlike manner. So they got to get their minds right during this week of practice and go out and take care of business on Sundays.
You're the best, Hoff. It's great to have you back for the Joe Thomas Hour.
Yes. Mondays are back. Mondays are now a great day of the week. A little film time with the Hoff, a little Hoff hour. Pure
Life
joy.
is so good, and I can talk again, guys. It's pure joy.
Sound
2 weeks out of the
resplendent.
vocal cord surgery. I feel so good. Thanks for having me, guys. Great talking.
All right, the great Joe Thomas with the Joe Thomas Hour here on Cleveland Browns Daily. We'll wrap this thing up. Still so much more to come. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. We got football tonight. Will we be the only winless team in the AFC North by the time tonight is over? Will Baltimore get their world shocked and lose at Vegas.
Unfortunately, I don't see that happening, Bo. I'd like to see it,
I know.
but I don't believe that it will. Ravens 30, Raiders 27.
What is it?
That's the score.
You went, okay. No, I thought you said it was the other. I'm going, wait.
No. The Ravens are the favorites.
All right. Ravens 32. Raiders 25. Oh, boy. Real treat. You're off to a heck of a start.
We both are. Both already,
it's
or we're
really-
both winning.
Really, for you.
Well, this could be 12-4.
Going to be a fun week. Home opener. We're starting to gear up towards it. Get towards it this weekend. Going to be great to have all of you back in the stadium on Sunday with Houston coming in. The next level is coming up